Hello, everyone, and welcome to You're on Fire, a Pokemon Unite podcast hosted by myself, Spragels, your resident content cowboy, Yeehaw, as well as Loosh and Crashy. Hello, Loosh. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And Crashy, are we recording video?
We are, and even better, we're recording on Lucia's new camera. Ooh. if anybody can see, if for the people that can see that, of course.
That's true. Yes, if you're listening to this in podcast form, you can find the entire video up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/whatever/Spraggles. And if you're watching this in video form and you want to hear this in audio form, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places podcasts exist. We have so many things to talk about. But first, how are you, Crashy? I didn't ask how you were.
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, hanging out.
Good, great. We've got so much to talk about today. We've got Dodrio, Scizor, a Balance Patch, Clefable, Zoroark, Sableye, the Halloween event, a new Battle Pass, a new season. So many things since our last podcast. When we last recorded, Mew had just released, and now we've been through a whole lot. Let's hop right into Dodrio to start things off. Dodrio released at this point, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, something like that. Yeah. It is gems only for the first week, which is also the case with Scizor. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Our newest speedster to the game, finally a speedster after an entire year, more than a year, we finally have a new speedster coming to Pokemon Unite. Since it's the first thing that we can mention, let's talk about gems only for a week. Loosh, I know you wanted to talk about this, so why don't you kick us off?
I think it's just so silly. I think back on like the Mew thing, right? It kind of like it dipped its toes in there a little bit, but it was an event, right? It's an event and you can get it for free. I'm kind of more okay with that, but I think if you wait the week and you don't get it free, you still have to pay the gold. So people are just like buying it for gems a week early, and it says, I don't know, I think it's a bit silly. It wasn't too bad with the two Pokemon we've gotten right now, right? Because even though they're strong, they're not like game breaking. But what happens when we have like a Duraludon release? You know what I mean? What happens then? When it's gems only, then does Unite actually become pay to win for a week?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the issues with it. And Mew actually wasn't the first. I believe it was Glaceon that you could actually buy right away, but it also had an event, which I'm kind of the same mindset. If you can earn it for free, but you could also just pay, and that doesn't really bother me that much because they're giving people free Pokemon, which is something I want all the time. I want people to be able to earn basically every Pokemon in the game by playing. I think it gives people incentive to play. It makes the game healthier because they have more choices. But clearly what they are doing with this practice seems to be going, hey, there's a group of players who are going to pay for these Pokemon right when they come up. Basically, they're going there. There are the whales of Pokemon Unite, and the whales of Pokemon Unite are going to want to buy the Pokemon right away, and that's how we're going to make our money. It's not my favorite practice either. I wish it would just be like Mew or Glaceon, where if you're going to give us the ability to buy the Pokemon, you could also earn it for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you think? I think that, and I could be misquoting this, I haven't looked into it too much, but I think that I can recall something called the 80-20 rule of business. And it's essentially like you get 80% of your revenue or 80% of your money from 20% of your customers or players in this scenario. And I think that what we're looking at, and I don't mean to rag on them too hard. I think it is a pretty blatant, example of, hey, we want to make more money. We're going to put this out here and we're going to FOMO the hell out of you, which is fear of missing out. And we're going to make you watch everybody have the shiny new toy, and we're going to, you got a choice. You either pay us for it or you wait. And I think because if you really play the game free to play and you're not spending any money at all, you don't really have enough gold to buy all the characters anyways. It takes time. So I think that it's just let them decide what they want to get, right? Just let them decide where they want to put their gold, because they're not going to be able to get them all for free right away anyways. So yeah, not a huge fan. It feels a little exploitive. It feels a little greedy. But yeah,
I think it tied in with the gold inflation at the same time is kind of making it even worse. It's just why? Why are you doing this?
Well, it's so interesting, right? Because we talk about like gold inflation and all this stuff. It's a made up number that then they made up the increase of the number. It's just weird to think about. But Crashy's entirely right. I actually think with free to play games, and I could be wrong here, maybe these metrics have shifted, but I remember hearing that it was something like 5% of a player base on a free to play game finances the entire game. And the other 95% doesn't do essentially anything into the game. So it's kind of this weird area where I would love to have a deeper conversation actually about monetization inside this and other free-to-play games, and maybe the best model for it, because I actually think there are some things that Unite does really well compared to other free-to-play games. I've played a lot of other mobile free-to-play games where it's like clogged with ads and you've got to pay to not watch an ad after every match, or you don't get times XP and gold and all these things. So I think there's a good conversation to be had around the monetization of Unite, and maybe we should have a bigger podcast just about that in general, because I think there are a lot of good fixes around it. Without question, they went, hey, if we release these Pokemon for literally 1 week for gems, every single player who has that, who we can kind of get our claws into that fear of missing out, like they're gonna buy. And of course, I don't even think they think about this, but literally everyone who wants to make content for the game is also like buy.
Yeah, and not just that, any competitive player that you want to get an edge on a Pokemon, you can't wait a week for everyone else to play it and then you get it, right?
Yeah, so you have to know. You got to start practicing it. Jake, I actually want to jump right back into something you just said. You said something like, we were kind of speculating about like the 5% might be funding the full game and the rest just kind of does nothing. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but what I would want to emphasize in that is that the rest of the player base, it's not that they're not doing nothing, and I think you're going to agree with me. It's that they're adding their presence and themselves to the game, and it makes the game really healthy, right? Like the more players, the better. So no,
how dare you?
The reason why
everyone else get out of Pokemon Unite.
The reason why I bring that up is because it really does lend itself to the idea of you got to strike that balance, right? Because you cannot drive free to play players away from a free to play game and have a healthy game. Like you need everybody. You need the free to play players populating lobbies and keeping queues going and being in high rated lobbies and being in all throughout the ladder and throughout the game, while simultaneously having the whales and the people that are willing to pay. So it's this big, like, symbiotic machine of an organism game that you got to keep going. So
everyone listening, no one will force you to buy the battle pass. I promise. Okay, I promise.
I think, Crashy, you're so right, because you absolutely need both. You need people who are literally financing the game with money, but the game doesn't exist if people aren't contributing to the game with time, even if they are paying or not paying. You need a lot of people involved in this game. As I've said many times, the second those queue times go up to like 5 minutes a match, good luck. I mean, the game just starts to continue into like spiraling down. So you're right. You need to make free-to-play players happy. You need to make whales happy. And you also need to make sort of this middle ground player, which I bet you in mobile games and with a game like Pokemon Unite, I bet you this is becoming more and more of a category, which is someone who has maybe spent $20 or something like that. That's probably as much as they're going to spend. Maybe they love Scizor, so they're going to buy that Pokemon. But besides that, they've probably spent $20 on this game. So you need to make them happy as well. It is a really interesting sort of algorithm that they need to figure out, right? Because if they drive away free-to-play players, that's the player base. It's got to be at least 90% of people have not put a dime into this game. Even if it's 80, like Crashy said, if you made 80% of the players mad and they left, the game is over in a day. Sure. It's gone. It's completely gone. So I would love to talk more about monetization. I would also love to talk more about Dodrio, given that it's our first speedster in forever. Let's get into Dodrio a little bit. Again, first speedster since the game was released. Zeraora came essentially free. It still comes free with the game. I just started a new account recently. It's still free after you win 32 games or play 32 games or something like that. And they haven't had one in forever. I've been theorizing that it's one of the most difficult classes to balance because it's either they're amazing or they're absolutely terrible. And we've seen speedsters sort of run that gamut throughout the course of the game, where Gengar is so overpowered and then it's useless, then it's so overpowered and useless. Absol has kind of done the same thing. So here we go. Dodrio. I guess what are your initial thoughts, Crashy, when you first picked up this Pokemon?
Initial thoughts, I just thought it was terrible. It's man, look, like we've had time with it now. I just think it's really high skill ceiling, and I still personally don't think it's amazing, but it's not useless. I never felt like it was like super like C, D tier, but I just wasn't really sure. I was like, I don't know what you do with this thing. I originally started off like, okay, the scoring mechanic on it's really cool, where you split your scores in 2 or in 3. And I was like, so maybe you play it like the Talon, where you just kind of like back cap a lot, and then you really like show up whenever you need to. And I tried that, and I had like some like 17,000 damage games where I was like, okay, this is just not enough. Like I'm doing literally nothing, even though I'm scoring 200. Like it's not enough, especially now with Rayquaza's HP change, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. It just feels like it's not enough to just be a scorer the whole game. And then I played games where I was like trying to fight a whole lot, and I'm using Drill Peck, and now I think like Tri Attack is better, and I still don't know which one I like more, Jump Kick or Agility, and I think it's a little subjective. And so I think that this Pokemon it's even something that I probably haven't put enough time on, and I think it's way better than I gave it credit for, but I still don't know where it falls. And I've seen it like do really, really great in the hands of really, really great players, so it has crazy potential. But I don't know, man. It's definitely not bad.
Lush?
The first game I played this Pokemon, I did something at like level 5, and I was like, hang on a second. I was like, wait, what? And then after playing it time and time again, I started to just think like, okay, someone well practiced on this Pokemon with a high mechanical skill and good macro around the map is going to be an unstoppable force. And we've seen that with players like Lutano. Even a lot of players have been doing it. Joe has been playing it on my team, and the dude does like 150k a game and scores like 300 points. I don't know. It's just insane. The Pokemon seems really, really strong, but it's definitely a high skill cap Pokemon. You have to be very good to make it good. Otherwise, it's going to be very bad. And I think that's a really cool place to see a Pokemon, and it almost makes it balanced because it's balanced by the skill of that individual. And it's a really cool take on a Pokemon, and it's better than, I like it more than the usual Speedster style, right? Where it's just like big burst damage and that's it. This has so much versatility. You have Drill Peck, which can actually be, utility for your team. No one really takes that move, to be fair. But you have Tri Attack, which is a lot of constant damage. You have Agility, which is a full heal with X speed tied in, which is crazy. And then you have Jump Kick, which is an amazing move in its own right. The Unite it's like a mini Azumarill Unite. It's just so cool. It's such a cool Pokemon, and it has so much utility. The scoring mechanic is amazing. It's a bit disappointing about the whole stacking thing. We all thought it was going to stack a little differently. It's a bit disappointing with the way it works, but it's kind of cool. But yeah, I definitely think it's a Pokemon with like probably has the most potential in the game if played well, but it's balanced by the amount of skill it takes to play it like that.
That makes a lot of sense. I think so. Dodrio, I think, went through an interesting sort of moment with the community. I actually love when a new Pokemon comes out. And what I try to do before I try to not do this before I form my own opinion, but I love seeing everyone else's reaction to a Pokemon. For instance, I was playing Scyther and Scizor on release, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to play it for hours and hours before I message Crashy and before I try to see kind of how everyone's feeling about something. So Dodrio is interesting because when these Pokemon are released on the public test server, they go through obviously some changes on there. We're not sure when they change balance on there. They could be changing it literally every day. We have no idea. So when this Pokemon was on the public test server, Drill Peck was without question the better move. Tri Attack was terrible. So then when it comes to the game, I think no one tries Tri Attack. And that's actually the move for Dodrio. It's so much better than Drill Peck right now. It's insanely good. And day one, I actually found like, oh wait, they buffed Tri Attack in a massive way. I think they almost doubled the damage of Tri Attack. And once I kind of found that and sort of its pairing with Razor Claw, I thought, oh, this is a seriously great Pokemon, probably high B or A tier. But you're right, Lush, very skill based. So you have to be very good with this, and it's a very specific play style. And I loved seeing the community hate this Pokemon when it came out. Because I was sort of on an island a little bit going, what? This is actually pretty good. I think people didn't realize it because I think everyone was playing the wrong moveset, which is Drill Peck. I think Drill Peck probably needs some buffs to be reasonable, but Dodrio's been a really cool release in my eyes, mainly because, like you said, Lush, it's good, maybe even really good, but you have to be good with it. And that's a really fun place to put a Pokemon rather than like Icy Wind Glaceon, where you can be not a very good player at all and still rack up 100k damage. I like that at least with Dodrio, you can put up great numbers, score a ton, and be extremely useful, but you actually have to be really good with the Pokemon. That's a cool place for a release to be, rather than Duraludon, where the A button is just really brutal, right?
Yeah, very true, very true. I agree completely. I think that Dodrio is so cool because it's so unique. It's I think people were playing it like it was, like Crash was playing it like it was Talonflame. Some people playing it like it was an Absol. Like people were just playing it not like it was Dodrio. You have to play Dodrio like Dodrio, which is what makes it amazing to me.
Yeah, I think it's really fun, and I'm so happy with it. It's now my most played Pokemon this season. It's my highest win rate this season. Even playing in solo, I've got like over 60% on it right now. And that's pretty, I think for any solo Pokemon, especially a Pokemon that's not an insane carry like a Gengar or something, I think that's really, really solid. I think some of the top players could make this Pokemon just unbelievable. And yeah, I have seen it competitive too. So for me, this has been one of my favorite releases that they've ever put into the game for a lot of reasons.
There's like when you play against and with a Pokemon, or like so much, you start to see these like little patterns, and like one of the few patterns I've seen with Dodrio that like it's really annoying, because it's mostly whenever I'm playing against it that I've noticed, is when you fall behind against a Dodrio, you never catch the score lead. You never catch the score lead because the Dodrio will do everything in its power to constantly back cap 12, 7, 14, 28. And it's like, dude, like we're trying to catch up to macro. Like we're behind in levels. We know the fight's already going to be hard. So we group up, we push. And then next thing you know, Dodrio shows up in the bottom path and then scores again. And you're like, come on, dude. Like we're just trying to catch up. So like, that's one of those patterns that I've noticed. So like whenever my team's behind, I'm just like, oh, we're never catching up. I think I've even recorded videos and I'm being like, yep, we're not catching this score. Like we're going to have to win the end fight. Like, so yeah, it definitely has crazy potential, and the versatility is what shines, because it's when you have a Pokemon like, okay, you have Absol, amazing at fighting. Yeah, you can run and back cap with it, but that's not its forte. So you know it's going to fight, right? You know it's going to probably be there, try to pick somebody off. But with Dodrio, you don't really know what the person's going to do with it. Like they could be ready to fight because it can, and they could be ready to back up and it can, and they could flank because it can. Like it's just so much that the person can do with it. So definitely gives it that particular edge.
The ability to like back cap at a Rayquaza and then unite into the fight while it's still happening is just insane. It's so insane.
And one really cool thing, there are certain Pokemon. So backcapping, for people who don't know what we're talking about, this is a strategy where there's offlaning and there's backcapping. There's a lot of different ways to talk about this. Usually when I think of backcapping, there's an important objective or something like that happening and someone is peeled off to make a big score. Oftentimes the backcap that breaks your heart is when you see your defender trying to score 50 when Rayquaza or Zapdos previously spawns, and you're like, Mammo, where are you? Like you have these moments. But there are a few Pokemon that actually do this well. Talonflame does it really well because Talon's able to get out of really bad situations with Fly, Flame Charge. And Dodrio does it really well because you can even not score all your points. This is something that I think is really fun. You can see where the enemies are on your mini map. You can put in a dunk or two of your, 2/3 of your dunk and then just run away, leave the goal with, 20 on it or something like that. It's really easy to get away with agility. So when I'm thinking of backcapping, I'm thinking of an important fight's happening. You've peeled off to do something. And there are only a few Pokemon that can do this well. Dodrio is definitely one of them. And that is really cool because on many other Pokemon, you're almost throwing the game away.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like, it's always been like that with Zapdos, and it wasn't really like that with Rayquaza. But now Rayquaza's health is very tiny, or much more small. It went from like 9,700 to like 7,500 or something like that. I forget the exact number. But yeah, it went down a pretty considerable amount. And so the risk of back capping when you're not someone that can do it very quickly and get back and make good value out of it it's definitely there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you see like your 4 teammates and then you have like one person back capping who's not really a good back capper, not someone that can get back fast. And if they see that, they're either going to rip it or rip a fight against us. And like you can try as 4 people to run away from 5. Like you can disengage, but it doesn't always work. And then yeah, the game could be over very quickly. So backcapping is definitely a skill. If you know how to do it right, you can get some good value out of it, but could be also a throw.
Yeah, it's one of those really dangerous things. And it's cool that this Pokemon does that pretty well. I mean, that's another cool thing about Dodrio. Let's maybe hit on a couple Dodrio builds that we've liked and we can start talking about, because we have so many Pokemon to talk about here. I've been loving stacking on it. I've been double stacking a lot. I've been loving Floatstone. Been loving Floatstone in general, which we could talk about.
Me too. I love Floatstone.
Razor Claw, I think, is probably the best item on Dodrio because it feels like every single thing it does is to set it up for its next big boosted attack. So you're kind of just getting these huge chunks of damage. But what have you been playing on it, Lush?
I'm doing Razor, Attack Weight, and Floatstone, like exclusively. Like I love those 3 items on it, and I love those 3 items on a lot of Pokemon right now. But yeah, I'm really loving that build on it because yeah, as you said, you get a lot of like. When you first play these Pokemon, your initial thought is, oh, I guess I don't basic attack that much because then my gauge goes away. But once you start playing around like agility and the tri attacks and in between, you find that you're actually doing a lot of basic attacks in between everything. So yeah, Razor Claw is like a no-brainer.
Yeah, how about you, Crashy?
It's the same build. Yeah, I haven't even really like ever since I put those items on. I think that's the first build I put on. I'd have to go back and like watch one of my first videos on it, but I'm pretty sure that's the first build I put on, and I was like, yeah, I don't see a point. Like, and the crazy thing is like it's just because of the scoring mechanic. Although it's not amazing with the stacking, it's because of that scoring mechanic that I'm using attack weight with it so much, anyways. Because I'm not really laning it. I mostly jungle or try to jungle invade when I play Dodrio. I really like jungle invading with it, but I actually think like just being a jungler with it is like really, really nice. Or like, you know, center position. I'm gonna be in caster talk sometimes when I'm hanging out with Jake. Center path, center position.
I don't understand.
Yeah, what's jungle?
You're not going to the central area, you mean?
The central area. Oh my gosh. Caster speak. But yeah, so yeah, I do just like putting it in the jungle and throwing on attack weight, and I know I'm getting those scores in. So but yeah, the Razor Claw, when I put the Razor Claw on, there was like a few games I remember vividly where I was between Razor and Muscle because I was jumping in and I was like, oh, once the agility bar is done, I was like, but it was because I didn't understand the character. I was like, once the agility bar is done, I'm kind of in. And I was also using Drill Peck, so I was like, I'm kind of in. Like, let me throw on Muscle and kind of like bounce around. I don't actually hate that. I might revisit that a little bit, like playing some Drill Peck with Muscle Band. But if you're playing like Tri Attack, even with Drill Peck, I just think Dodrio and Razor Claw are like, you know, they're hand in hand. They go really great together. I mean, Razor Claw in general, I've always felt was like a speedstery item. I mean, minus Gengar, but very, very speedster oriented burst kind of item. So,
yeah. I love Razor Claw. My first build was also Razor, Attack Weight, Floatstone. I love that build. For a little while, I was messing around with Score Shield, but you don't even need it.
Yeah,
you don't need it on this Pokemon. It's better on Talon. Like Talon, I actually feel like there's a lot of value for a Score Shield because you have to score the entire amount. But with Dodrio, you don't. So even if you get interrupted after scoring part of your, Eos energy, you still put a lot of points on the board. So I don't really need a Score Shield. I like right now I'm running Razor, Attack Weight, Eos Cookie, and I found the extra health. I mean, when you're talking about
you double stack,
I double stack. I have tried this before. Yeah, I know that this is shocking news. Are we recording video? But I think, I love this because it has a low health pool. One of the lowest in the game, not the lowest, but it's one of the lowest health pools in the game. So when you stack your Eos Cookie, I mean, you're effectively increasing your health a massive amount. It's almost 20% or something like that, which is pretty huge, especially when you get good at sort of the in and out of combat thing. An extra 1,400 or so health is pretty massive.
Oh, it's a big deal, yeah.
Pokemon. So I love that. I would love to talk more about Dodrio if you guys had anything else, but we also have Scizor coming up next. So any final thoughts on Dodrio?
It takes a lot to learn. The final thought's something, I mean, we obviously talked about like the mechanics of it, but specifically like learning to aim and move with this character. It's like, that is like, it's so unique. So that's like part of the linchpin, right? Like you figure that out, you're going to start to unlock the potential of the character. You realize how much you're playing with the left stick and not both sticks. I mean, when you're tri-attack, you're using the right stick too, but and this is obviously for a controller, but when you figure out that you're playing primarily with your movement, it's really interesting. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Our next Pokemon released, Scizor and Scyther, plus a piece of Hollowear that is pretty nice for Scizor only. We'll get into that. Once again, a gems only release for the first week, but boy, maybe they saved a lot of people a headache with this one. I'll start off by saying this is the worst Pokemon they have ever released in Pokemon Unite. It's absolutely awful. I don't know what happened to this Pokemon on the public test server, but Scizor was good, and now it's horrible. Scyther, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but this Pokemon needs some massive help. In my opinion, to be useful at all. It has the lowest win rate in the game. I've never seen a win rate this low on every single build. And unlike Dodrio, I don't think it's going to skyrocket in a week once people figure out how to play it. I think it will get better, but I think this Pokemon is just crazy undertuned. And I'm honestly kind of scratching my head as to what happened with this release. But let's get into it, Crashy. What are your thoughts on Scizor Scyther?
Yeah, it's it's almost like a chicken and the egg thing. Like, I wonder how much their PTS balance to launch is impacted by their own data or by like reception to the bonds, because we all played Scizor and we were like, holy hell, like Bullet Punch is crazy, like Scyther doesn't feel that great, it feels okay, like you can dash around and auto attack, like that was like the sentiment. And then it's completely flip-flopped, right? Like Scyther is like the much more viable version of this Pokemon, or like evolution path for this Pokemon, and Scizor just it just feels like it does nothing, man. Like it's got this like movement that's good, and it has like a little bit of sustain, but there's no damage and the sustain isn't high enough. So it's like, it quite literally feels like 3/4 of a Pokemon, or like a half a Pokemon, where you could just pick anything else and have more value. I like have hope that there's like a little bit of viability to it. But again, it's like when you look at strength, it's all relative, and there's no pick ban phase. So it's all, if you're going to put something in jungle, you can pick something stronger. If you're going to pick something in lane, you can pick something stronger. So it's definitely on the very, very bottom tier. Scyther, I think, actually has a crazy skill ceiling. Like, I think that like getting really good at like maneuvering this character so that way, because it's really squishy, where you don't die and you can get your resets and then kind of like pop off in a fight. It almost feels like you're like surf spamming with Greninja, and you're just kind of like getting everything going. That feels really, really good. So yeah, I like Scyther a lot, but yeah, Scizor not so much.
Lush?
I think Scyther's nuts. I think Scyther is genuinely nuts. Like,
yeah,
I think
the lowest win rate ever. Let me look at that.
Yeah, because it's a high skill cap.
Crazy.
I genuinely believe Scyther itself is nuts. It's just like, the stuff you can do with this Pokemon is to me mind blowing within a fight. You can enter and disengage from a fight like 3 times and just come in and out, and just like wipe a person out every time. The Unite's really solid if it's lined up properly. It does a lot of damage. I think Scyther has a lot of potential, and it's going to be a while before we see what it can truly do. I think Scizor would be a great Pokemon in a different game. I think Scizor just doesn't fit in this game. I think that we're at a point now where all of our all-rounders one-shot everybody, and Scizor doesn't do damage. It sustains decently. It's got good mobility and good tools in its kit. It just, the numbers aren't high enough. It's just a numbers thing with Scizor right now. I think if Scizzor's numbers went like way up, then I think it would be a decent Pokemon. I think the design is good, but at the state that we're at now, with all-rounders needing to be essentially just tanky speedsters that blow everyone up, Scizor just doesn't fit in, and it's not going to get any play.
I really like that you brought that up, because it really does kind of take us back to that conversation we had about like all-rounders, and that's been my thought. Like, I really do feel like all-rounders they just do too much damage to me. And
they do too much damage.
The funny thing is that looking at Scizor in its current position, I think that it still isn't like a balanced all-rounder. I think it's actually still a weak all-rounder, but I think that Scizor could use like slight damage or sustain buffs, because either one of those is value, right? Like, you just have to think about value. And then I think a lot of the other all-rounders could use nerfs. Like, they could come down in damage. Because like, look at a Pokemon like, and this is kind of a little off topic, sorry, but look at a Pokemon like Zeraora. Like, is Zeraora bad?
No.
Like, kinda, but why? But like, why? Because like, relatively speaking, you could just like play an all-rounder, or like you could just like pick a different speedster. So
yeah,
it puts speedsters in this position where you're either the big boy one-shot character, or you're just like not good at all. Or and then you have Talon, who's like a little bit more versatile, and Dodrio that's a little bit more versatile. But yeah, so all-rounders are in a weird spot where they got to be really, really good, or they're just like not good at all. And the other thing about it is like, don't we have like 10 of them? Don't we have like 10 all around? Like, there's so much to choose from, so it's like, man, there's just so much. So yeah, Scizor
definitely, Scizor just definitely like, it feels weak even in like, if that was the like, if all rounders were balanced, it would feel a little bit weaker than them still.
What are some of the damage numbers y'all have gotten in Scizor games? Like, what have y'all seen?
Dude, what's crazy is I'll be playing a game and I'm like the whole time fighting, popping off, and in my head, in the other character, I'm like, this is like 150k damage game.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the screen, I'm like 85k, and I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, I was hitting everyone all game, and it's just mind blowing. What about you guys? What
would you say is like your average damage game, Scizor?
50 to 60.
I'd say mine's probably closer to 40.
Yeah, I feel like mine's like 40. So here's the crazy thing. If you could consistently get between 40 and 60, like, you know, normal game or like a really, really good game, but if your recovery was like 35k, 45k, then I could be like, yo, this Pokemon is not blowing everything up, but you're not really taking him down either, you know? I think if that's where like Bullet Punch's like niche was, dude, I'd be all about it. Cause then you throw like a focus band on it. Maybe you stack a cookie and you throw on a potion, and you just, cause I tried this like tanky build with it. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't hate it, but I'm not doing any damage, you know?
Yeah.
And so dude, if that was the niche of this Pokemon, where it's like, holy hell, this thing is, cause Scizor's a steel type, right?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if it's just like this tanky, like this thing that just like doesn't die, and it's like you always get it close to death. You see that health bar like really pinching down, and then it goes boom, 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 and it punches itself back up. Like, oh my god, that'd be so cool.
And for anyone listening wondering, the reason my numbers are a little higher on damage is because I literally run like Razor Claw Weakness Policy X attack on my Scizor to try to get as much damage as I possibly can.
You're just pumping the damage.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I would love it, actually. Maybe if they kept the damage, I still think they need to tune it up a little bit. But maybe if they kept the damage similar, but yeah, raise its sustain through the roof, because then it has an interesting niche inside the game. Right now, I mean, and outside of how good Lush is, or how good some of like the top players are in this game, let's talk about not our damage numbers. As a group of players who are all pretty good, at least. Let's talk about the damage numbers we see on allies, which are 30k and under every single game with either Pokemon, with either Scyther or Scizor.
That is true.
Scyther is a separate conversation, but Scizor, when I have an ally who's a Scizor, they are beyond useless. I thought Dodrio players were going to be beyond useless because it's a really mechanically intense Pokemon and it's very different from everything else. Having a Scyther or a Scizor on your team is like a death sentence. I swear, you have an AFK all game, basically. They do thing. And I think that's super unfortunate. It's super unfortunate.
I mean, I've had... I was gonna say I've had like a 24k game, like, and I was like trying, you know what I mean? Like I fell behind, and then I was like, I can't recover.
I've definitely done like 35k before. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, oh, what is this? Yeah, like it's tough. Like I think that a big reason is Scizor's stats are too low, and Scyther's skill ceiling is very high. So I think that on those two things, a lot of just pick up and play players, and I have seen in other MOBAs. Like, so I played Smite for a long time, and I'm sure you played Smite a lot too, Jake. And I'm sure you remember was it Persephone, the whole rework, because at a high skill level, that Pokemon was played incredibly, but no casual could play it. So then they did a whole rework on it, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Persephone the Pokemon.
Persephone the Pokemon got a whole rework. Yeah. But no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think
it's like 4 a.m.
It's tough because they do have to strike a balance between, it can't be that a player who's amazing is so good that they delete the entire game, but you can't have a player on your team pick a Pokemon and they be so detrimental that they do absolutely nothing. And I feel like that's the place we're at right now with Scizor and Scyther. I want to talk a little bit about Scyther because I've been very negative about this Pokemon, but I feel like I'm just trying to be realistic. I think people are. I think people are being way too nice about this Pokemon. I think it's truly abysmal in so many ways, and I've been trying to be nice about it and trying to find the silver lining. Even Scyther, who I agree is so much better than Scizor, so much better than the PTS. Is there a Pokemon where you would say, I'm happy to replace it with Scyther? Because I can't think of any Pokemon where I'd go, okay, good, get blank off my team, throw a Scyther in there.
Well, see, that's the problem, because like I think Scyther excels in jungle, and jungle is always going to be the most contested role. And I mean, like we're still in a game, like especially when it comes to solo queue, there's so many great solo queue picks for jungle. You have Greninja, you have Gengar, you have Absol, you have Delphox. So it's like again, relatively speaking, when it comes to talking about like would I really rather have Scyther, it's like no, I don't think it's that good, but I don't think like the Pokemon itself is bad. I think it's high skill ceiling and has a high risk, high reward, because if you can play it really, really well, you can get a ton of value off of it. But at the same time, you can absolutely get either similar or the same, if not more value out of another Pokemon a little easier and like a little bit more guaranteed. So yeah, and what I find with Scyther is that like it's really squishy. So sometimes I'm about to go in and I know I'm gonna blow everything up, and then boom, I'm dead, and I'm like, I was so close to pulling it off, right?
Yeah, you just get volt tackled one time, and you're like, well, yeah, there I go, I'm gone.
I love Scyther, man. I genuinely I'd be so happy to see it as my jungler, even in like a team. I love Scyther. When I play it, I feel strong. When I've played it with that like plays it well, I felt like wow, like a really solid Pokemon. Like just the tools it has, right? I think I get excited when any Pokemon has mechanics in this game.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, right? I like the ability to... Because double hit is great, right? And dual wing beat, aside from the aiming, which I don't know what they were thinking with the aiming. I don't know what they were thinking
I think that's maybe a bug, honestly.
I
think
so.
they've kind of got
I truly hope so, because that is abysmal. I think the Mon is really cool. I think its damage needs... I don't know what it needs, because if the damage goes up, people like... I'm sure you guys have seen like your Scolded play it, right? People like that it's gonna be silly. They're gonna be doing 220k a game, murdering everyone. Yes. But the casual players are doing more. So I don't know how you really fix the problem with this Pokemon.
Well, we've talked about how to fix Scizor, and I think that could be a cool change. It needs a little... But the sustain, it makes sense because that feels like what it's built around. For Scyther, it's weird because you have an all-rounder and you kind of have a speedster in one Pokemon, right? And I think for a speedster like Scyther to be viable, you probably need to tick up the damage slightly, but you're right. They tune it even just a hair too much, and all of a sudden it's 5-KOing everyone every game, because this Pokemon can already string together Penta KOs in really impressive ways. But maybe even Scyther needs, I don't know, maybe it needs a little more lifesteal, or maybe it even needs a little more health or defense. It seems weird to say this, but maybe instead of tuning up its instead of tuning up its attack, maybe it just needs a little defense, fix the bug with its targeting, and then all of a sudden you could at least say it's a very solid Pokemon. I find it interesting that you think it's... Here's the thing that I'll say about it. If you're great with Scyther, I would rather you be great with 10 other Pokemon and you'll get more value. So even if someone's great with Scyther, why wouldn't they play Delphox or Gengar or Greninja or all the Pokemon?
I can see
they're all better at a high level. Every single one of them is better at a high level than Scyther.
And that's where like the balance conversation for a lot of these comes into play, right? Because like you always have that conversation of like, oh, if X player is good at Y Pokemon, then it can be good. And it's like, that's true to a point, but at some point, if you take, programmed AI and you put it on X or Y Pokemon, the programmed AI is going to get more value out of the stronger Pokemon. So I absolutely agree. And it's like, this is where, again, I feel like I bring up pick ban every single episode, but this is where like pick ban starts to...
You've talked about
we talked about that? Are we recording video?
Are we doing that?
So it's... If we had pick ban, then there would be times where like you pick Scyther because they picked something else or because something was banned. And so like in this weird world of just like the way that Unite works now, it's like, yeah, for sure, I can definitely say that it's not the highest tier, but it has so much potential because of what it can do. So it's weird, we're sitting here thinking about how we should buff it, and like the reality is it might not even need buffs. We might just need like a shift in the way that we view the game, or a shift in the way that the game is played for some of these Pokemon to be viable. And I'm always I'm kind of always of the thinking that like not everything can be viable in a MOBA anyway. Like it's just like it's impossible.
It's impossible to balance everything. Yeah. What I think about Scyther like is like a lot of those Pokemon are they're better at different things, of course. Like Gengar is going to do more burst for sure. Same with like Absol. Same with like Delphox. Delphox's dashes and its kiting potential very, very strong with its damage. The thing with Scyther that I like about it is the unpredictability of an enemy Scyther if they're good. You have no idea where they're going to move next, where they're going to move to, and it's very hard to read. That's what I really like about this Pokemon, and that's what I think it does differently to others. It can move around a fight in a way that you genuinely don't know where it's going to go next. It can hit you with a dual wing beat and come at you, or it can go left, right, backwards, then double hit another way, come back in, reset, move again. You get what I mean? It's got so many tools that other Pokemon don't have. So I think that its skill set is different to most other Pokemon. That's kind of where I sit on the Pokemon.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, and I think I'm overly critical of this Pokemon, and I don't like boiling conversations down to pick something else, because there was a meta just recently, and we're still on the edges of it, where literally 3 Pokemon were so good that to pick anything else is almost going into the match with a massive
They're still pretty great.
So and that's what I was saying. They're still kind of amazing. So but so I don't love conversations like it's like, why just pick something else? But I feel like this Pokemon, more than many others, really is not doing itself any favors in the meta, with so many things that are kind of sparkly and really good, and then you've got this Pokemon. But I agree with all the points you made about Scyther. Obviously, no one's defended Scizor. But
I've tried to make it work, man. Because you know me, I was on the Azumarill train long before the buffs, right? So I always try to make something work, and Scizor just is not it.
What I will also say is, I don't know how to really balance this in my brain, but I don't think judging a Pokemon based off the 20 best people to play the game is a great way to judge it, because they're not going to be playing that Pokemon. So it's not always like, when I see some of the most cracked players in the world playing a Pokemon, I just think, boy, people are unaware of the skill difference. Like I think the skill difference between Lush and I is probably pretty big, and I think I'm really good at Pokemon Unite. So
me bad player.
But so there's that. Or when I see, Mame or Scolded, Chris Heroes, or something like that, you pick up these Pokemon, they're like, they got 30 KOs with this build, and I think, you won't. Whoever's watching this, you won't. I can assure you won't. So I don't always think seeing Toon play Scyther is a great example of what's going on with that Pokemon. But either way, I just think for me, this has just been such a bummer release. Let's talk about the Hollowear really quick. Why on earth is it not on Scyther?
I'm so sad.
It's so weird. Why would they do that? It is a split evolution. It makes no sense.
Scizor and Scyther are 2 of my favorite Pokemon of all time, and I was like, oh my god, I can wear like this cool like keep hood on like both of them. And then like me not having a brain, just like I literally bought it without looking, because I was like, there's no way it's not on both. It's a split evolution, but no, it's not.
I think this is where I get to be traditional Crashy here, and
hold on,
I just yeah. I think like looking at this, it is one of the most bizarre things I've seen, because it's them releasing a Hollowear, as they do, releasing it for X amount of currency, as they do, at a premium cost, and it is the most lazy thing I've ever seen to see them just like, not to discount it because it's on one of the evolutions, not to have modeled it out to fit on Scyther, not to have put like a little tagline on it or a little thing that says Scyther only Hollowear, like to literally release it as any other Hollowear for any other Pokemon, and it have the same like $20 premium cost USD, and then it's like, it's not the same. It's not, you do not get the same value out of this Hollowear that you get on another $20 Hollowear. And so I don't know. It feels like a fish hook. Like it feels like a hey, did we get him? You know what I mean? Like did we get him?
Yes.
So it's bizarre. It's really bizarre. And I don't want to, I'm ragging on them enough. I don't want to go any deeper and say like they did this on purpose, but it feels a little lazy. It feels a little lazy at least.
It's a little mean.
Yeah. I think it's bizarre. It's just so weird. It should be on both, and I understand.
We'll get a $40 one that is, right? Like we'll get a crazy cool $40 one that's on both.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll never be playing the Pokemon again, but I truly hope so. Actually, I'm so excited for when they inevitably buff this Pokemon, because I think
It'll be scary.
Style is really cool. It'll be scary. And
Scizor will be scary. You can choose when your iframe is when you evolve. That's going to be so scary if it's good.
I love that, by the way. What
scary.
a cool thing that you can just like wait and then tap that button for Bullet Punch. But then again, you've just sealed your fate by picking.
Maybe that's why it's bad.
Yeah, they're like, look, we gave you the whole iframe, so now this Pokemon's so good. Let's talk about the balance patch that just came to the game alongside a few big changes. So we had changes to the big three evil Pokemon, Mew, Mime, and Glaceon. We also had a Rayquaza HP change. We had some insane buffs for Buzzwole and Azumarill, and some nice things across the board come to the game. Let's start really quick. I just want to touch on the big three Pokemon. I think my take on this balance patch is it wasn't supposed to come this fast, actually. I think for Mew, Mime, and Glaceon, I don't think they had these nerfs ready to go. I think they were just like, okay, let's tune them back a little bit, because these nerfs feel like not enough to bring these Pokemon completely down to earth with the rest of the game. But I think they saw what was going on, planned on putting a few, maybe Azumarill, Buzzwole buffs into the game, and went, we're just going to tune each one of these Pokemon back during that time frame. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but I think these aren't the full nerfs that we would see for those three Pokemon, especially Mew, who I believe is profoundly overpowered. Like one of the craziest Pokemon ever.
Strongest Pokemon we've ever seen in the game.
Yeah.
Like if Mew doesn't get nerfed drastically, then it will be the only attacker like ever played for the rest of United's history. Like that, no one will ever like that. That's what's sad about it, right? Like competitively, like no one's going to play anything else ever. Insert Crashy pick ban moment.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. No, I think I don't know. Again, typical Crashy here. Always whining, always complaining. No, I think the only thing that you can say about a patch like this is that because it didn't do enough per se, it needed to happen faster. And I'm always going to want to see, like, I mean, look, I think asking for a patch every 2 weeks that's a big ask at times. But I think if they were able to find this balance between like, oh, let's hit like a tiny, it's like, sorry, I'm all over the place. It's like cleaning your room. You could wait a month to clean your room and your room is super dirty, or you could clean it like every few days, do a little pickup, clean it every week.
Clean your room?
You get my point, though. Like it's like about letting all these issues accumulate.
Every
episode we talk about cleaning the room.
I have so many coffee cups everywhere.
I feel like
you're so right, dude. You're so right. It was a long time between balance changes. We had these Pokemon who are overpowered for a while, and it feels like they could move a little quicker. I don't know if I heard Lush say this the other day. Someone said this, and I think it's so true, is I think this team and the ability to churn things out, I think they're smaller and like less able to move as quickly as we think. I think this team is smaller maybe than we expect, and they're not able to do things that quick. That being said, I think when you see numbers like this, when you see the pick rate and win rate for Mime, I feel like it's in Sylveon territory of emergency. Like they did an emergency nerf, cool, but boy, this needed a big one.
Yeah, it needed more. Like right now, Psychic feels a little more balanced. Power Swap is actually the problem. I feel the move is way too strong, and Confusion is still. Mime's weird, man. Mime's a weird Pokemon.
And just again, this is going to come down to like the same thing I had my conversation about all-rounders and like what they're supposed to be for their archetype. It's the same thing I could say about supports. What are supports supposed to be? You know, like and then it comes down to Mime more specifically, especially like in current meta. Is this thing supposed to be a healer, or is it supposed to be tanky, or is it supposed to be to do damage? And if it's supposed to do all three, then can we pull it back on all three, or can we push it in one direction? Like because you can have a support that is very damage focused, but you have to pull back the other two things, right? Like it just comes down to like, what is this thing doing, and can you recognize that it's doing too much of everything?
I think the perfect example of like you're pulling back the other thing is, so look at Wigglytuff, right? Wigglytuff has a lot of crowd control. It can really burst down a carry. It can do a lot of damage. It doesn't have sustain. You can't have all three. You can have two of the three, I think, if you're support, but you can't have all three.
Yeah, I think they do have a difficult. They have a difficult system set up because Pokemon inside of Pokemon, the mainline games, they're not like, this is a supporter, this is a defender. They're not only that thought process. They have like, you have Pokemon like a Mew. Literally, its stats inside a mainline game are crazy. So when you bring it into the game, they think like, yeah, make it crazy. But that kind of doesn't work for a MOBA. So it is interesting. And sometimes I feel like harping on the balance of the game is always a little too, I don't know. It's a little weird because like we said earlier, there are always going to be a few Pokemon that are kind of better than the others. That's every game, every meta. There are always a few things that are much better than the others. But I think this little this little balance change came with some nerfs to the big three, but it didn't maybe hit them enough. I'd like to talk about Azumarill.
I think just real quick before we move on to Azumarill. Yeah, I think that, to me, it's like, I don't understand the justification of like how they nerfed Mew so like, it was such a tiny nerf when something like Cramorant was nerfed like patch after patch after patch after patch, right? And then Mew has been hit with this tiny little thing that changed nothing. It still does like 3,000.
In my brain, I think what they do, and I could be wrong about this, but I think what they try to do is they want a Pokemon, especially a popular Pokemon. I guarantee Mew is incredibly popular. They see it picked a ton. Well, we can see pick rates. And I think they don't want to take a super exciting, popular Pokemon and immediately just nerf it into the ground and make it unusable. So they have this weird process of going like, all right, it's overpowered. Let's scale it back a little. I
think they don't know how to nerf Mew. I think they have no idea how to nerf Mew. Because how do you nerf it? Like,
it's got to be damage across the board. I mean, Solar Beam's insane. You get it at level 1.
Surf half health.
Yeah, it's funny.
Enhance during it, and like,
I feel like you could just pull the SP like numbers down a bit. Like, but that's the thing. You can't pull it down too much, and balance is hard, man. And balance, especially balance in MOBAs with no pick ban, it is hard. It's very hard because like so you pull Mew back. And then what takes its place, right? Like if you pull it back too far. And if you pull it back a little bit like they've done, then it still reigns like supreme. And that's not always a bad thing either. I do think it's still overtuned. But my point is that even if you were to pull Mew back to just strong, it still just might be the best just strong pick in the game. So it's weird. I think because of the way that the game is set up, it would be best for them just to make a lot of passes at balance. Like, you do a balance patch in 2 weeks and then 3 weeks from that, and then maybe 2 weeks from that, and then 3 weeks from that. And you try to, it doesn't have to be 100% consistent every couple weeks, but like you try to make passes at it, and you try to like look at the feedback, and you try to, make your own decisions about what they want the game to be and what they want their Pokemon strength to be, and then you just react, right? Like it's the free to play dev to player relationship is very symbiotic. Like, they got to listen to us, we got to give to them, they got to give to us, and so on and so forth.
No, agreed. And I have a message to the devs. There's no excuse anymore. Let Venusaur eject during Solar Beam. Thank you.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you can do it, if you can do it, why not?
You can agility and eject during Solar Beam.
Yeah, that's true. Azumarill. I really want to talk about Azumarill, and we could talk about Buzzwole in this conversation too. Two Pokemon that released super undertuned, even if some people disagree. These Pokemon needed some love, and now all of a sudden, I think both of them are really, really solid. Azumarill, I mean, it's weird. I mean, you changed the evolution from level 5 to level 4. And now all of a sudden you can play this Pokemon in Path with no issue. You will get your level 4 easily. You'll evolve. You'll get.
He meant to say lane.
Every single one of its moves has been dialed back a level. So you get Water Pulse Plus at level 12 now instead of 13. You're essentially, I mean, what they've done to Azumarill is one of the biggest buffs they've ever put into the game. It's just crazy good. This Pokemon I think is
didn't even need it.
I don't know. I think it needed it, but it's It's weird because I don't hate it, but it's very strong. Like I know when I'm standing across the lane from Azumarill, I'm like I don't know if I can fight this thing. It does crazy burst damage with Aqua Tail. It feels like it has really good sustain with Water Pulse. It's just rough.
Yeah, rough I think. Look, really I think it did need some love because all-rounders are so incredibly broken, right? And even though I feel like it was a good Pokemon, it didn't live up to the rest of them. And now, like, the Whirlpool set feels amazing, better than it ever has. But what did they do to Aqua Tail?
Yeah.
What did they...
You know, it's weird because they buffed it a couple patches ago, and now you get it a level earlier, and you got the
and you healed a full.
You healed. Yeah, it's crazy good.
Yeah, it's really strong.
It's so strong. It's actually hard to not do 100k with this move. Like, it's actually hard not to if you're just swinging it out there. It's so strong. And Azu being a Pokemon that, like, it spams its Unite so frequently, getting it a level earlier is so big. Especially 8 to 9. That takes a while in that point of the mid game when you're not like a jungler, right? Right after the laning phase, getting that 8 to 9, that's a whole nother like extra Unite throughout a game. And that's a really big deal. Really big deal.
Yeah, I mean a lot about Pokemon Unite is tempo, and when you have some of these level 8 Unite characters, like you recognize that, like, even if they're not the best character, like sometimes you can gain a lot of tempo, and then you can carry that throughout the game. So yeah, I
like
think
you and Glaceon, they get away with it, you know.
I think, yeah, dude. Oh my gosh, Glaceon, like even now, like Glaceon Jungle, like, and I really like running Energy Amp on Glaceon Jungle because you can like get your level 8, you can go to like 8-minute Altaria, you can like pop an ult if the enemy jungler contests you, you can kill them, and then you can go farm and get your Unite move back for Regieleki or bottom Regis. It's like, dude, what is that? Like, that's so much tempo. So yeah, I think level 8 Unites are interesting. I've always been kind of the mind that I just wished everybody got their Unite at 9, but I've always been that way. But it's an interesting balance tool, so I don't hate it. It's unique to Unite, which I think is cool. But yeah, really definitely something to talk about when you're talking about Azumarill, because that is a very strong Pokemon that also has tempo built into its like evolutions.
This is the weird thing, right? So Azumarill now, like, it seems so strong and like broken. Like, it's not broken, right? It's just really strong. And it's still not like that was a good buff, because even though that's the biggest buff we've like ever seen, are you still going to pick that over Aegislash in a competitive team? Probably not, right? You can, you know, we did some we were playing in the Ground Zero League and we were doing the finals against Renaissance, right? And so we tried a game with Azumarill and a game with Aegislash, and they both had their like strengths. It didn't feel like one was weaker than the other, and that's what we need to see more of in this game. We need to see different Pokemon.
Play both. Do it.
Buzzwole, on the other hand, a Pokemon also that released one of the funnest Pokemon to play with such a cool kit.
I love it.
Boy, they brought it into this game so weak, which was weird because I swear it was another PTS moment where this felt really solid.
Absolutely was. Well, remember in PTS it had level 8 Unite too. And then they nerfed that. They nerfed that pre-launch, so we knew it wasn't getting level 8 Unite coming to live. And I was like, because I think the first video I made on Buzzwole was like level 8 Unite, like holy hell, like. But I remember Leech Life I loved Leech Life on PTS, and I was like, dude, that's so good. And then it hit live, and I was like, I don't know. And now Buzzwole feels like pretty solid, man. You get a big muscle gauge, and you leech life someone, you're almost full healing or doing a lot of heals for yourself, and you're taking a lot from them while CCing them. So, yeah, I don't know. I've been having a lot of fun with this Pokemon lately.
Same. I think, across the board stat increases, Mega Punch increase, Smackdown increase, Fell Stinger increase, Leech Life increase, and it was buffed a patch before. Sorry, Lush, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, all I was gonna say is like, so Buzzwole to me has always been really strong from like level 5 to level 8, right? In that little window, it was like the strongest Pokemon in the game for like
very strong
30 seconds. You know, the early needed that love, the Mega Punch and the Fell Stinger. That's massive. Please let Mega Punch go over walls and make the circle make sense. But everything else like is really solid about it now. It actually does damage. You can secure in lane, in path, and you can do some like better things that you couldn't before. You know, level 5 is still really strong. Now whichever move you pick is solid. I actually find myself playing Smackdown now, which I thought I would never do. My only gripe with Buzzwole is the fact that everything gets interrupted by everything. Any micro stun just stops everything you do, and I just really don't like that about it.
Yeah, it still probably could use a little love there because it does feel like at times if the enemy team's smart, they can shut Buzzwole down pretty hard.
Mm.
But it also has a really cool, it snowballs really well. As soon as it gets a KO or assist, it just feels like it's really hard to sort of tamp down. The attack speed, move speed goes up. Their muscle gauge fills again. I still think Superpower is probably better, especially because Superpower Plus, anything that lets you do your move again is pretty nuts, So I still think that's
resets are crazy.
The way to go. But I love that they finally made this Pokemon good. Because what a weird release Buzzwole was. I thought it was going to come in so powerful, and it came in pretty dang weak.
Yeah, so I didn't have the PTS. I just listened to you guys, and you guys got me so excited for Buzzwole. And then I played it on release, and I was like, "Hang on, this what are they talking about?"
Dude, I hate that my memory is so bad because like Japanese beta Garchomp was absolutely disgusting.
Yes,
and it's like the same thing, dude. Japanese beta Garchomp, he was S tier. Like it was crazy how strong he was. And the funny thing is like I didn't have context on the game back then. I was so new to it that I don't even know why. Like I think back and I'm like, I don't even remember why. I was playing a lot of Dig and Earthquake. And I don't even know if that was the right moveset back then, but I played the beta and I was like, oh my god! Like me and one of my IRL friends, who played me and him used to play Heroes of the Storm together. He used to play a character in Heroes of the Storm called Anubarak, and Anubarak had a move that was a lot like Dig. And so my buddy was the one that picked up Garchomp. He was like, "Oh, dude, this is like Anubarak," and I was like, "Oh, cool." And so then I got to playing, and I was like, "Dude, this thing is crazy." So yeah, man, I don't know. Like you get your hands on like the tests, and then they make all these changes, and they don't really tell you what changed, and it's like, oh, what happened?
Can I ask like a serious question? When's the last time anyone saw a Garchomp in a game?
I mean, I see him every now and then, probably like a day ago or something.
I'm genuinely trying to think. Like considering like I see every Pokemon quite frequently, right? Even Duraludon's like around. I know, Jake, you believe in Duraludon a little bit. It's even Duraludon's around. Right?
Take a look at the win rate, Lush. I mean, let's see. Duraludon 52.9%. Where is Scyther? 40%. Oh, this is so weird. Sorry.
Man. What's Pikachu's win rate out of curiosity? I think it's the worst Pokemon in the game.
Pika is 48.5.
I think it's the worst Pokemon in the game.
I think Pika's better than Ninetales. I think Ninetales is abysmal.
No, I think Pika's the worst Pokemon game. I think Blizzard at least does some damage. I don't know.
Scizor, yeah. I think Scizor is really, really down there. But man, so the tweet like you had where you were like Scizor is the worst Pokemon in the game, Jake, and I was like laughs and Ninetales. Like I think we're both like on the same page more or less. Yeah. Like we're kind of like at odds for the fun of it. But yeah, dude, these Pokemon, like some of these Pokemon in the game, just feel like they can't do anything, man. They just kind of walk around.
Now, because we didn't actually get a chance to talk about this, right? In the last one. They took away the Natus and they reworked the jungle XP, right? You can't get like crazy level 9 for free. Like that's a big deal.
I actually, some people have not liked this change, but one thing for sure is some of these matches were getting really way too snowbally, way too early. And one thing I don't like as a player who plays a lot of solo queue, I don't like it when one Pokemon makes the difference for my team or the enemy team and I have no control over it. So if I'm in bottom path, and I'm playing Mamoswine or something like that, like I'm trying to be the defender for the team. When I see that my jungler or Central Area Pokemon for the enlightened people, when my Central Area Pokemon is fine and the enemy Gengar is already walking to path at level 9, being the entire team with 2 button presses, that's a really hard place to be in. So I understand people don't like some of the XP changes, but honestly, I think they're probably pretty healthy for the game because I think things were just getting way too out of hand.
I agree. I think they are very healthy for the game because now it's back to what it used to be. We stole the Xatu to get the most experience, but then you're going to like worry about, getting jungle invaded. Like the jungle now is an invade is a really big deal now. Yeah. Before you could invade a jungler and then they would just like still get 9, right? It would be fine. But now it's a really big deal. And yeah, I like this a lot better. I think it's a lot better for balance of the game. Not everything's got Unite move in the first fight, right? It's cool. I like the changes. I miss Natu's existing though. Like at least put him in the background or something.
Yeah, I think they were really cool. I liked them too. I think they could probably have reworked it, but I understand it's also kind of a stacking problem. They kind of set up like
and Charizard had Unite every 4 seconds.
The second they walk over there or something like that. Yeah, Charizard's Unite. That's true. Charizard. We have a lot of balance to talk about. We've been talking for a long time. But I would love to hit on some of the rest of this balance. Let's talk about Rayquaza and the change here real quick. It's weird because it feels like in some ways a healthy change, especially for people playing solo or duo or trio, where you have less control over the game unless you can make a big play. But also it does feel like they, not fully, but they've kind of rolled back a little of what was cool about the new map, which was the fight around final Rayquaza. So yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. The HP change, they've, like you said, Crashy, I think they've knocked off almost like 2,000 HP.
Yeah, it's something around there.
9,200 to 7,720. So what is that? Over 1,500? Something.
I feel like it's weird because looking at it, I was like, when I read it, I was like, oh, that's bad. Like, I'm really not happy with that. And then as I play it, I don't really care that much. Like, it doesn't really bother me that much. The other thing about it is, like, I think when you have a game and there's a big boss, you want that boss to kind of matter. And we were almost pushed to the point where, like, it almost didn't matter at all. Like, in most games, it did not matter. So they absolutely had data to show, like, oh, we have, 100,000 matches played, and out of 100,000 matches played, like, I don't know, 10% of them Rayquaza was dying, or something like that, or was, And so I think that, like, for the design of the game, it's probably healthier. Like, you want the game and the game and its features and its objectives to be relevant. And while, it's a macro it's the player macro to decide whether or not we go for it or not, dude, it was actually really hard to take down. Like, it was really hard to get a kill on. You couldn't flip it. You had to win a full team fight, and the map is bigger. So when people are backcapping, it pulls you away from it and you have to go backcap. And so the macro part of it was really, really cool. And I do miss that, but I also like the fact that it's able to, we killed 3 of them. Let's rip it. Let's try to win the game. It brings some of that excitement back to the game. It brings some of that control back to the game. But for me, I can't actually decide which one I like more. I just think it's like a linear change. It's a change they made. I'm fine with it.
Lush?
I'm torn. So I liked being able to do different things at the end of the game and make different plays. Maybe play a little, like, if I'm ahead, I could play a little more defensively and watch my goal, and I had time to get to Rayquaza if they start to hit it. If I was winning, I could. I mean, if I was losing, I could look to make split push plays, and again, if they hit Rayquaza, I had time to respond, time to do something. Now it feels almost, at least in the games that I've been playing, that if you're not at pit at 2 minutes, it's reminiscent of Zapdos. It's going to get ripped. They're going to rip it, and it's gone. And I just don't know if I love that. I don't know if I love that for the game. It's too early to tell, really, right? We haven't really had many big competitive tournaments to really test out Rayquaza, to be fair, like to really see how that would affect it. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the change, but I don't completely hate it either.
I think they're going through a tuning phase, and I would love to see where it comes out at the end of this, because I like the shields and sort of win condition it presents compared to Zapdos, because their defense, even still, there's still more of an option for defense with this. And I also really enjoyed the previous Rayquaza, because it really did set up scenarios where, like Crashy said, I feel like there were so many games that ended and no one even, Rayquaza, maybe its health got down to quarter, half. The team, some fighting happened. People ended up peeling off it. Some scoring was happening. There were some really cool situations surrounding it. But at the same time, I kind of like that you've got to have this balance. You got to have it where if someone is backcapping, you can do something somewhere else that's not just backcapping or defending to give you an advantage. So I like that if 2 enemies peel away from the fight and we've KO'd one of their teammates, we can rip. I like that, but there's a balance there. Maybe somewhere in the middle here makes more sense.
Rayquaza's presence needs to be consequential. Like it can't just be there because it's there, and it can't, like, I think if you have an objective that is potentially game winning, because that's a good thing that they changed about it. It wasn't guaranteed game winning, like almost like Zapdos was, and Zapdos wasn't guaranteed, but it was pretty dang guaranteed. it's potentially game winning, needs to actually be able to be taken. The weird thing is like, and maybe I'll just need a little bit more time with it. I need to watch some competitive. I'll be honest, I've watched very little competitive stuff with all of Skyrunes. Just kind of waiting. This is mostly off season. People are testing, new stuff's coming out. But maybe I could see my opinion shifting to where like, yeah, maybe they could buff it up like a little bit more. What did it go down to? 7,700, something like that. Like maybe it could go up to like 82 and like hit it in the middle. I don't even know if that really makes much of a difference. But I'm like, I want the fact that the Rayquaza is on the map to matter. But I don't ever want it to matter as much as Zapdos, and I think that we might be in that spot. So I don't know. I'd be curious to hear. Like this would be a good like call to action for anybody on YouTube like watching. Like let us know what you think. And any competitive, competitive players. If you're watching this, like let me know what you think competitively. How does the new change to Rayquaza feel? Because I am genuinely pretty curious.
The reason I say that I don't hate it is because like, I have like if I go back cap and they rip it, like that's annoying, but I have time to back and defend my goals, right? And you can actually defend this. That's why I don't hate it. The reason I feel like I don't love it is because I never liked the coin flippy endings. You know, I don't want to see that. Now, Dragonite meta will never be what it was because Dragonite can't rip Rayquaza off the top of the pit. You can't hit it through that top wall. It's too far away now. So that's gonna at least hold that back. So maybe it's okay that its health is lower. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I guess time will tell.
The other thing too is like the residual or like the collateral damage of ignoring your enemies to rip the thing just means that all their damage goes to you when you get it. And so it's like, oh, rip. You rip it, you get this massive shield, and then boom, they slam you with all this damage that was about to come out that they were trying to hit with it. They were trying to hit you with it. And it's like the shield didn't even matter. Y'all just flipped it and y'all just saw what happened. And that could crazy impact a game. But it's just not Zapdos where the value is instantly secured. You know, when Zapdos died
in the face.
Yeah, it's but also I think the design of the pit is nice too. I like that there are some characters that can fight it over. I think the change to Zapdos, the change to Rayquaza's HP makes Cinder a slight bit better. Although I don't know if we'll see a ton of Cinder, but yeah, like in solo queue, Cinder feels a little bit better to play for that reason because I can just say like, you know what, I got to rip this, or I can at least rip it over the top and give myself some options. But yeah, overall, I think I'm kind of leaning like, I don't know, 65-45. I like the change, maybe 70-30. But it feels okay. It feels like an okay change.
What about the weird 30% damage buff on your first ability?
Yeah, I think they need to change that a little bit. I kind of like that there's a bonus from getting it, but like anything, I think they probably need to play around with that a bit because every once in a while, a team will secure Rayquaza and then just KO the entire enemy team that was around it, and that just feels like,
It's better than the Zapdos stun, at least, to be fair. That was... I don't miss that.
Okay, if you're gonna have a buff on Rayquaza, tell us about it. And if you're gonna have a buff on Rayquaza, make it like something that makes sense. Like, okay, so like the way that like Energy Amplifier is programmed is like 21% increased damage for 4 seconds, right? It's like that is a really it's a really easy thing to understand. All of what you do damage wise is going up by 21%. So you could easily have like 10% damage increased while you have the shield on, or whatever that value is. But like, or you could like raise his SP attack and attack stat by X amount while you have the shield up. Like, just make it make sense and then tell us about it. Like, that's my only issue. Like, I don't actually care what the thing does. Like, I'll care whenever I play with it and if it's problematic, but just tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on with this thing.
We've got a lot of balance changes. I'll just run through some things real quick. Absol got a little nerf. Aegislash got a little nerf and then a little buff to its Iron Head.
It's a big buff to its Iron Head.
Sure, big buff to its Iron Head. That's true. Blastoise got some nice early game buffs. Is there anything that you guys really wanted to talk about buff or nerf wise before we moved on to some of the other Pokemon?
I just want to say, can they please give the Azumarill buff treatment to Blastoise to make it a playable Pokemon? Because it is never going to be playable outside of the jungle unless it can evolve earlier, because it cannot farm. Water Gun, even after the buffs, just is not enough.
Yeah, it's weird.
Be tough early. That's true. It has a tough time. Let's see. We got a lot still to go through, guys. So we'll probably touch on these ones quick. Clefable, Zoroark, Sableye. I've played them on the public test server. I don't know if either of you have had a chance to hop into the PTS to play them. All of them seem cool, in my opinion. Clefable is completely overpowered, the most broken Pokemon to ever be played.
It looks like it. Yeah.
It's insane. Zoroark is really cool. Like the comboing nature of this Pokemon is going to be so fun for people who are, a high skill. And then Sableye is one of the most interesting kits.
The Unite looks crazy.
The entire game. The Unite's awesome. Faint's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about all three, and I pray that they nerf Clefable because it is just.
But it's kind of like, the legend that is Clefable. Like it was supposed to come out and never did, and here it is to ruin the entire game. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a giant meme. It's cool.
What do you think, Crash? Have you played any of them?
No, I actually haven't touched PTS in a little bit. I mean, my opinion on PTS is weird. I just like I've regressed from even wanting to get on it because I just feel like I can't do a whole lot with it. And yeah, I don't know. I'll hop on it at some point and kind of test them out. But the experience of playing on PTS is like I can't really play real games super well. I never really know if the thing's going to release in the state that it is, so it just feels really knee jerky. And not that doesn't make good videos and like couldn't make for at least getting my hands on it mechanically. I'm also emulating it too, which is like not great and it like doesn't feel great. So yeah, my experience with PTS is a little bit weird. But I'm excited. I think. Like I always say, I don't really have any rose-tinted glasses with Pokemon. So like any time a Pokemon is released, I see it as like, MOBA champion being released. So I'm always excited for more. I know that like there's going to be people that are really, really excited about each of these. I'm just generally excited about all of them. I think adding more to the game is definitely what the game needs. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Haven't put my hands on them, but looking forward to them.
Nice. Lush, any thoughts on them?
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to jump on the BTS, but I definitely think Illusion looks crazy, and I can't wait to do some fun stuff with that.
Yeah,
I can't wait to do some fun stuff with Illusion. It's gonna like really, you're gonna see a player difference in that passive alone. Like it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah,
and I'm so excited.
It's gonna be so cool. I can't wait for all. I'm kind of with you, Crashy. There are some Pokemon that I absolutely love, just being a fan of Pokemon, but these three, none of them tick that box for me. However, all of them have really cool kits, and I'm excited for them to come to the game. Clefable will be here as we're recording this in 1 week. We've got a new event coming up for Halloween, a new battle pass, a new season. Crashy, you are doing something here for October that I know you wanted to talk about a little bit. Is it dressing up in a fun costume?
No, unfortunately not dressing up in a fun costume. And I'm not going to take up too much airtime for anybody that knows or has heard or thinks it's stupid or whatever. I'm doing a simple gesture. I'm currently boycotting Pokemon Unite in terms of spending money. And it actually changed, but I'll just explain what it is now. I'm not spending any money. I'm not purchasing a membership, which is also spending money. I'm not spending any of the current gems that I have, so I'm just not purchasing anything for the month of October. And I'm essentially, it's just a call to action to anyone that wants to participate. Doesn't matter if you do, doesn't matter if you don't. My personal beliefs on it is that it's not going to change anything, but I'm hoping that it will at least be seen, because we know that they pay attention to the community. We know that they're looking and listening. I just want them to be a little bit more aware of the feedback that's out there. And if it changes nothing, totally fine. If it changes anything at all, maybe I'll never even know about it. But it's one of those check boxes that I personally wanted to hit. So that way I felt like, hey man, I really like put my opinion out there, gave my feedback and did my thing. So yeah, for the month of October, I am on this. It's a mini boycott, because people have asked me, well, why don't you quit playing the game entirely? It's like, well, I still want to make videos and still want to do my job and stuff. So that's the honest answer. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, some of the stuff looks really cool.
How will you win games if you don't spend money?
I don't know, man. The age-old question.
I actually have a similar boycott with Scizor and Scyther. I won't be playing for October. I'll never play them.
What if they buff them though with the Clefable release?
They need to. My goodness, they need to. So that's what Crashy's got going on here in the month of October. And we also, you know what? Now that was brought up, I feel like we can just touch on a little bit. It's weird because the whole community had a hey man, you can't say anything about my mom moment where we are constantly talking bad about our mom and she's unreliable and she doesn't communicate with us, that mom being Pokemon Unite. And then someone from outside the community kind of came in here talking some trash, and it feels like everyone in a fun way sort of rallied behind this game. And it's weird because I'm all for whatever anyone wants to say about anything, truthfully. Like Crashy boycott, I'm not boycotting Pokemon Unite, but more power to Crashy, whatever he wants to do to affect change and things like that. I'm all for any of it. I really am. The thing that was tough about the video that came out about Pokemon Unite is it's really hard when someone's complaining about something that they have little information on, either purposefully or just maybe they really think this. I couldn't fully tell, but a big video came out. I can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of like how mobile games are trying to take all your and Pokemon Unite was sort of featured in it. And the thing that I think is weirdest about it is I don't think Pokemon Unite is one of the biggest offenders of any of the things that was talked about in that video, which is interesting because there are many mobile games I have played or free-to-play games that feel like really fit the bill for what was talked about in that game video. But yeah, we had this video come out. It kind of trashed Unite in a bunch of ways, and then everyone had a response.
Look, I'll be very clear with my opinion, which I've already done. I think that this video was made with the intention to do that. I do not think that it was an innocent take on the game. I think that it was very narrative driven. It was very storytelling focused. And as far as the video itself goes, and as far as the presentation, man, that was some amazing YouTube. I'm just going to throw it out there. That was a sick video. Him, his team, their editors, whoever it was, they did an amazing job. But it was incredibly disingenuous. It was incredibly misinformed. And I think a big part of it was done on purpose. And I don't think it was to slight Pokemon Unite. I think that that's just the game that maybe hit the crosshairs, but a lot of the practices that were even brought up in the video about other games didn't fit Unite at all. So it was like you have this big story about what mobile games do wrong, and all of that's true. Like, so much of it is true. You just picked the wrong game to be the meat and potatoes of the discussion. And I'm the person that hates on Unite the most, right? Like, I'm the one that I'll give you the reasons to complain if you want to, and to be upset with Pokemon Unite. But 99% of what was in that video, it just doesn't really ring true, at least not to the degree that the presentation made it out to. So yeah, it was very disingenuous. I do think that it's a bit damaging. I think anytime somebody has a massive platform and they put something like that out, you have to assume that there's some level of damage that's done. But yeah, we did stand up for our game and say what we needed to say about it. So
yeah. The video, like for like video quality, right, was incredible. But yeah, none of it, like, I don't know, like I feel like, I don't know if it was just going on the Pokemon name for the views, but then like I feel like Pokemon Go is even more like, microtransaction heavy, to be fair. But like Diablo Immortal is so much worse, right? All gacha games are so much worse. All those like those clans games where you pay to speed build things, like all those games are so much worse that it just didn't make any sense that Unite was like the center focus of that video to me.
Yeah. That's why I wondered, and I try to give people the benefit of the doubt because I really don't know. I just wondered if it was like low information and they thought, well, Pokemon's a big name, so we'll start with Pokemon. But it was odd because they're talking about things that you can immediately go, well, no. So when he's like, the thing about Pokemon Unite is you're just mashing your buttons and you're getting stronger outside of battle. And you think that couldn't be further from the truth of what happens inside of a match of Pokemon Unite. So it's just weird because there are games. When I think of a game like what is it, Clash of Clans, where you get your decks, you build your decks, and then if I have a level 6 little thing of skeletons and you have a level 5 thing of skeletons, I know the game is not this simple, and there's I've played this game quite a bit, and I know there are championships, but my point is, if you literally want to look at it, my little army of skeletons beats your army of skeletons. So there's at least more of a conversation that being more powerful before the match is a bigger advantage in a game like that. And in Pokemon Unite, it's so irrelevant.
And that's the thing. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not going to pretend like there's not some layer of pay to win when it comes to just maxing up all your items to level 30 right away, right out of the gate, because you can do that. And that in itself, if you want to be literal, sure, you can slap the pay to win tag on it. The thing is you don't need all your items 30. And there was a big storytelling element to that video, which was all about presentation. And it was like oh, well, you want to know how much it cost? It's 7,000 item enhancers. And oh, if I wanted to purchase all this, it's $1,200. And it's like, it was a really big moment for the video, but it wasn't a really big moment of truth. And so, yeah, you can technically pay to win if you want to just put the literal definition on it. But we all know, and everybody knows that plays the games, that it's really just pay to progress, because you're going to get your items to 20. Everybody's going to get
30 for free when you hit like level 14 or something, right? Like,
it's not like you're going to get all of them to 30, but if you do some research and you find the best builds, then you don't even need them all. There's like a good handful of items you really don't even need past 20 for a long, long time. I didn't have a lot of my items past 20 for so long, probably like 2-3 seasons. And do I have an advantage now because I'm a more veteran player? Sure, technically, but that the difference between if me and you are playing the exact same character in the exact same row, in the exact same position, with the exact same emblems, with the exact same items, and mine are 20s and yours are 30s, it just comes down to game sense and playing as a team and being the better player. It's not going to make having 20 items and having 30 items is not going to make the difference.
And that's genuinely true. That's genuinely true.
Yeah, it's genuinely true. I'm not here to BS about it to protect the game.
If you were playing if you put, say me, someone who's playing the game since launch, played in like competitive tournaments, right? And you take away all of my items, and you get someone who's never played this kind of a game before, and you just make them buy their items to 30. Do you think they're going to win that game? No, not even remotely close, right? It's to me, that makes it not pay to win, because you can't pay to win the game.
I think the definition of pay to win, I think Pokemon Unite has pay to win elements. This is true, but the degree to which you are paying to win is so minuscule that it's not a good representative for a pay to win conversation. So I am I do a Road to Masters kind of every season with just like some weird
trailer
little thing. And this season, I think I'm day 4 or day 5. I've been recording them. By day 4, I have I'm not using anything. I'm using no items, no boost emblems, nothing. By day 4, I have enough tickets to buy every single held item except one, I think. I have 2 super item enhancers. I have enough item enhancers that they give you for free to upgrade, I think, 5 or 6 items to level 10 or 20 on their own. So by playing the game for literally 4 days, you could have 3 level 30 items, 5 level 20 items, 7 Pokemon unlocked. It's just such a weird game to throw the pay to win and pay to play sort of label on, because it's one of the best things about Pokemon Unite is that is not true. It's just not true about this game.
It's just not.
It's so weird to see that video. And I never want to attribute malice where I think ignorance is probably more likely. I think they probably played Pokemon Unite for 2 days, were not very good at it, and they went, wow, everyone must be upgrading these held items to 30 or something, because I'm dusted in these matches.
I genuinely think that's what it was. I think it's like a misunderstanding. They genuinely just believed everyone else was buying items, and that's why they were winning. And
also maybe they saw Moist's video and were like, I could make an easy video here. And
very true.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk about this video, but every single thing that's said in that video has been said in other videos before. There's not a single piece of new information. We've all seen the clip, at least maybe I could be wrong here, but I've seen that clip about how they monetize free-to-play games a million times. The only thing I had never heard before was the IKEA effect, which I was like, hey, that's kind of a cool.
It's actually really funny because that part felt so made up to me. Like I was like, wait, what? Okay. I mean, maybe like, I don't know, that was the one part that I remember. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I think
But yeah,
item gives 15% damage.
Yeah, that's there was a lot of just false information in the video too. Like
15%.
Lush said 15% damage. It's like, no, there is no item that gives 15% damage. That doesn't even exist. There was another thing where I think he was confused between trial licenses and truly purchasing something, because he was like, oh, this game takes the things that you earned or bought away from you. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. Like he got that. And that sounds like a really big point. Somebody hears that and they go, what? You had something and then they took it away from you? It's like, well, it was called a trial license. Like it's very clear what it is. So there was a lot of storytelling and I can never say
the whole video is like disproved to the point where he's like, the game is pay to win, and then he says like the sentence, "No matter how much I spend, I just kept losing." Like that. That to me, like just like just watch that part. Just watch that part of the video.
It's pretty great. He also made the claim that when you pay, they put you against weak opponents, and
he knows some stuff. Can you get me in touch with him?
Yeah, that part. That part is where it just feels like maybe you could prove that, and maybe that's been confirmed for other games. And the video very much so felt like a video that was coming out against mobile games. But it's weird to do that whenever you pick one and then you sprinkle in like a couple others on top of it. Because if you're going to make that claim, you can make that claim generally about mobile games because you don't need proof. But if you're going to make that claim, then and the whole video is about Pokemon Unite, then you need to prove that it's about that. Pokemon Unite does that. And if you can't, then it's a lie. So like that, like there's more than one blatant lie in that video, and it's just bizarre. Just bizarre.
Yeah.
As I said on Twitter, if this game was pay to win, I would have won Worlds. I'm serious. I mean, there's no way that this game is pay to win. I can assure you it is not. Let's talk about, we got a new battle pass coming out, the Halloween event, and a new season coming out in just a week. And we've been talking for a while, but I'd love to hear any thoughts that either of you have on anything we've touched on, or just a new season coming. What do you think, Lush?
I'm disappointed that we're not getting another squirrel for Halloween with a bug that breaks the game, because that was really cool.
Cliff Able Knight.
True. That thing looks menacing. I'm kind of hyped, man. I'm kind of hyped, just for like a new season, and because stuff will be different. I'm just looking forward to playing the game more and getting to see the new characters in the game. Right? Like I've been excited. I don't know if I'm more excited to play Cliff, or I get to like use it on my tier list now, and I'll just leave it there on the side. I'm really excited for like Sableye and Zoroark. They're such cool Pokemon. I've wanted Sableye in the game since like the guy in the store has it. I don't know his name, but when you go to the store, the dude has like the little Sableye.
You don't know his name?
What's his name?
Come on, man.
I don't know his name. We call him Mitch. His name's Mitch. So Mitch has a little Sableye. Yeah, and Sableye is it's such a cool mon, and like the mechanic of it's so cool. I'm excited to try the new stuff. That's it. I'm gonna ramble on for an hour about it, but I'm excited to try the new stuff. What about you, Crashy? What are you hyped for?
I think, Jake, me and you did a video talking about Pokemon we wanted to see from each gen, and I think I picked Sableye. I was like, yeah, he's in the game, but like it'd be cool. Like I think I tossed him in there. It might have been one of the ones that we did dual picks for. But yeah, I think Sableye looks like a cool Pokemon, and I go a lot on silhouette and like the way the design of the character looks without even knowing anything about him, because I don't. So yeah, Sableye looks like a cool Pokemon. I think the design of it looks really, really fun. But just to speak generally, I think new seasons for Pokemon Unite are always one of the most fun parts of the game, where you get that, we got to get in there and get Masters again. Like it really is a sense of accomplishment to go after and get it again, even though, getting Masters is super hard, and, we know most of us can do it. We've done it every season. It's a fun little thing to do. So new, fresh, always good. I'm excited about it. New battle pass. I unfortunately will not be purchasing it, but it's always good, man. It's that sense of revitalization.
Gift you e-vouchers?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
What if I send you $30? That's technically me buying it. I mean,
I'll send you a picture of my Chipotle that I ordered that night. Like, I
don't know. All right, everybody. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back with more You're on Fire very soon. Let us know in the comments what you think about anything we've talked about throughout this podcast. As you're listening along, if you have some thoughts, this is kind of something I should say early, because saying at the end makes very little sense. But we'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you all. Thank you, Lush. Thank you, Crashy. Goodbye, everybody. I love you. We did it.